The Brazilian national team, the legendary Seleção, certainly does not lack of good defenders. However, the closer one examines the selection, the clearer it becomes. This is not a terrifying backline in the traditional sense. At the heart of the defense, the duo of Marquinhos and Gabriel Magalhães has effectively become the default selection. On paper, they represent a classic, balanced partnership. Marquinhos brings the aura of a veteran leader, a player whose game is built on reading the game, impeccable positioning, and organizing the entire defensive block. Opposite him, Gabriel Magalhães is the physical enforcer. He thrives on direct duels, aggressive interceptions, aerial dominance, and resolving situations that require raw grit on the pitch. In theory, this is a perfect synergy. However, the reality on the grass tells a more nuanced story. Marquinhos is no longer at the absolute zenith of his powers, a peak he occupied so dominantly just a few seasons ago. Meanwhile, Gabriel has been remarkably consistent and elite for Arsenal. In fact, elite might be an understatement, but questions remain as to whether he is the type of centerpiece who can single-handedly shoulder the entire defensive system when the team is under siege. They are a good pair, certainly, but they have yet to cultivate that aura of absolute invincibility that defined the great Brazilian defenses of the past. The depth behind them adds further layers to the conversation. Bremo was once heralded as the premier defender in Serie A, but following a string of nagging injuries, the primary concern is no longer his undeniable class, but rather his physical durability and long-term consistency. Roger Ibanez remains the archetype of a defender who gives coaches both delight and anxiety in equal measure. He possesses the recovery speed, the physical tools, and the ability to cover vast spaces, yet a single momentary lapse in concentration can cause the entire structure to spontaneously combust. Then there is Leo Pereira. His call-up at the age of 30 suggests that Ancelotti is widening his net for options, but it simultaneously whispers a sobering truth. Brazil currently lacks a wealth of top-tier centre-back alternatives that truly put the manager's mind at ease. However, the real flashpoint of this defensive analysis lies on the flanks. This is where the tension in Brazil's tactical construction is most visible. On one hand, you have Danilo and Alex Sandro, names synonymous with experience, safety, and tactical discipline. They are the low-risk options who rarely commit catastrophic errors. On the other hand, you have Wesley and Douglas Santos, modern, high-octane fullbacks who possess blistering speed and a relentless desire to overlap, stretch the opposition, and apply offensive pressure. The paradox is that you cannot easily have both stability and explosiveness simultaneously. Opting for Danilo and Alex Sandro guarantees defensive solidity, but sacrifices the element of surprise, often pushing Brazil into a reactive, passive defensive posture. Choosing Wesley or Douglas Santos injects energy and attacking impetus, but forces the backline to accept significantly higher risks, especially when facing elite transition teams like France. Nevertheless, the consensus among experts is that Ancelotti must lean toward Wesley. He represents the future, the modern evolution that the Seleção desperately needs to embrace. Ultimately, the Brazilian defense is currently more of an ongoing balancing act than a finished masterpiece. They possess the pieces, but the blueprint to make them function as a singular, unbreakable unit remains under construction. Ancelotti does not have the luxury he enjoyed at Real Madrid, where world-class talents hit their peaks simultaneously. Here, he must meticulously assemble imperfect pieces, searching for the least wrong solution rather than a perfect one. Brazil remains a powerhouse, but they are no longer the team that makes strikers feel defeated in the tunnel before the match even begins. They are a unit in transition, where experience, physicality, and audacity coexist, but have yet to truly become one. When observing the current Brazilian midfield, the prevailing sensation isn't necessarily a question of strength versus weakness, but rather a noticeable shift toward a very pragmatic, almost raw state of being. Gone are the days of the quintessential Brazilian samba midfield, those units that prided themselves on aesthetic ball retention, intricate patterns, and controlling the tempo through sheer technical elegance. Instead, we see a structure designed to serve the system, protect the flanks, and facilitate the explosive attackers positioned ahead of them. Casemiro remains the undisputed sun around which this solar system orbits. However, the narrative has shifted from how good he is to how dangerously dependent Brazil is on his presence. He still possesses that uncanny ability to sniff out danger. His interceptions remain elite, and his positional discipline is a product of world-class experience. But the hard truth is that his coverage area has shrunk. His lateral quickness and recovery speed are no longer what they once were. This means that if the forward line loses possession cheaply and repeatedly, Casemiro can no longer sweep up every mess like he did during his prime. Placing the weight of an entire national system on the shoulders of a player past his physical peak is a high-stakes gamble. Surrounding the veteran are names that are fascinating, yet shrouded in uncertainty. Andrés Santos brings undeniable vertical energy, the ability to crash the box, and a natural knack for scoring from the second line. However, he is not a metronome who dictates the rhythm of the game, nor is he a pure, specialized defensive anchor. Danilo of Botafogo feels like a slightly more vintage Brazilian midfielder, rugged, durable, and capable of operating box-to-box. Yet, the leap to the international elite level remains a massive question mark for him. Then, there is Fabinho. While his inclusion offers balance, it's hard to ignore the fact that even at his absolute peak, he struggled to cement a starting role. Now that he is playing in the Saudi Pro League, his sharpness is a legitimate concern. Perhaps the most intriguing name is Gabriel Sara. While he might sound unfamiliar to the casual observer, he could be the skeleton key that unlocks a more rhythmic midfield for Ancelotti. Sara isn't a superstar, but he is exactly the type of player modern managers adore. A tireless runner, a connector of play, a pressing specialist, and an intelligent mover off the ball. However, when a nation like Brazil has to pin its rhythmic hopes on a player of Sara's profile, it highlights a glaring void, the lack of a true brain in the center of the park. The most damning critique of this midfield is the absence of a genuine regista or playmaker. There is no one with the inherent ability to put their foot on the ball, rotate the axis of the match, and dictate the tempo according to their will. This deficiency forces Brazil into a very predictable, albeit dangerous tactical pattern. Funnel the ball to the wings as quickly as possible. They rely on the individual brilliance of Vinicius Jr. or Rafinha, or they ask a striker like Cunha to drop deep and act as a makeshift bridge. This is a double-edged sword. When the transition is fluid, Brazil looks direct, terrifyingly fast, and impossible to contain. But when faced with a team that can control the ball, like France, or a team that knows how to suffocate space in the middle, Brazil risks becoming reactive. Without someone to hold the ball in the most critical zones of the pitch, the system can fracture. Brazil has plenty of runners and plenty of muscle, but they lack a clear idea of how to dominate a game through the middle. Until they solve this intellectual puzzle, there will always be a lingering doubt as to whether they have the substance to go all the way. On the surface, the Brazilian attack is a feast for the eyes. It is a collection of high-octane talent that can strike fear into any defensive coordinator. However, a deeper analysis reveals a familiar recurring problem. They have an abundance of talent, but not necessarily a cohesive fit. This isn't a talent deficit, it's a surplus of options lacking a clear operational axis. Vinicius Jr. remains the undisputed focal point. He is the only player in the squad capable of conjuring something from nothing when the tactical system is being strangled. However, this has led to a dangerous over-reliance on the left flank. When Vini is double-teamed or forced to receive the ball with his back to goal, the entire offensive engine stalls. This isn't a failure on his part, but rather a structural failure of the supporting cast to provide him with the optimal conditions to thrive. Rafinha is currently enjoying a phenomenal run of form, but his brilliance is often contingent. He excels at exploiting opportunities within a functioning system, as seen at Barcelona. But when asked to be the primary gravity of a team, the one who drags the entire collective upward, he hasn't yet proven he can be that definitive individual force. Gabriel Martinelli offers similar traits, relentless work rate and high-intensity pressing, but he isn't yet a game decider in the sense that the ball at his feet equates to an inevitable goal. In this context, Matheus Cunha becomes unexpectedly vital. Cunha isn't a global icon, but he is the connective tissue that holds the disparate pieces together. His willingness to drop deep, link play, and open up passing lanes addresses the deficiencies of the midfield. But again, when your foundation player is someone like Cunha, it underscores the absence of a true world-class creative hub. The most glaring concern, however, is the number 9 position. Brazil has strikers, but they lack a predator who demands respect the moment the team sheet is announced. Igor Thiago is scoring at an impressive rate in the Premier League, but the international stage is an entirely different beast. João Pedro is a versatile, complete forward, but he lacks that killer instinct that defines legendary Brazilian strikers. Then there is Endrick. He is an undeniable generational talent, but he remains a high-stakes gamble. After a brief explosion of goals for Lyon, he is already showing signs of being found out by savvy European defenders. Brazil has 3 viable options, yet none of them are undisputed. Overall, this attack is lethally dangerous in transition. Give them space to breathe, and they will tear any defense to shreds. But pull them into a tactical phone booth, tighten the spaces, and deny them the opportunity to run, and they lack a sophisticated mechanism to break down a low block in an organized fashion. This is the primary difference between the current iteration and the legendary Brazilian sides of old. It's not that they are less talented, it's that they haven't found the conductor to turn these brilliant soloists into a symphony. The most significant takeaway from this squad list isn't the specific names included, but rather the philosophical shift it represents. The absence of Neymar is no longer just a story of injury or fluctuating form. It is a symbolic signal that the Seleção is entering a new era, an era where readiness and current utility are prioritized over historical glamour. Ancelotti isn't denying Neymar's greatness, but he is refusing to let the team's destiny be tethered to a player who isn't at 100%. It is a cold decision, but a necessary one if Brazil intends to reclaim its throne. Conversely, Igor Thiago is the poster child for this new Brazil. He isn't loud, he isn't overhyped by the media, but he consistently finds the back of the net, forcing the world to take notice. His 19 goals in the Premier League aren't a fluke. They are the result of elite efficiency and relentless consistency. He is the type of striker Brazil has craved for years, a man who lives and breathes based on current form rather than past reputation. The emergence of fresh faces like Ryan, Leo Pereira, and Gabriel Sara demonstrates that Brazil is actively self-correcting. They are moving away from the static core mentality of previous cycles. These aren't shock selections. They are calculated experiments designed to broaden the tactical toolkit ahead of the World Cup. Endrick fits this logic perfectly. He isn't a guaranteed starter, but he is a wild card capable of changing a game's gravity if deployed correctly. In total, the Brazilian attack does not lack quality. In fact, it is remarkably diverse. But that very diversity creates a complex puzzle for Ancelotti. How to make these pieces function as a singular machine rather than a collection of individual highlight reels. Brazil has no shortage of great players. They are simply in the process of transforming that quantity into a definitive, reliable system that can endure until the final whistle of the World Cup. The road is long, and the pieces are still being moved, but the direction is clearer than it has been in years.